Welcome back to the Literary Lounge. I'm Emily.
And I'm Paige.
And we are back here on the podcast. Today we're doing things a little bit differently. Normally we will talk about a specific book, get into full spoilers, go through all the themes, the characters, etc. Today we've decided that we're going to do more of a book talk. And specifically our topic for today is book clubs. So we're going to be getting into like how to start one, how to structure one, maybe some books to get you started.
Scheduling meetings.
Yeah, all the things, book club. And so today we are also drinking a beer from Ursa Minor. It's a brewery in Duluth, Minnesota, which is, we're both from a town nearby Duluth. So we wanted to promote some local beers. And that is by far one of my favorite breweries in Duluth.
Yeah. I've never been there. This is the first time I'm drinking it, but
it's really cute. They've been around for a few years now. They have like an outdoor patio area with fire pits and stuff, and they have actually pretty good food there too. But it's just like such a vibe, and the beers are good. Highly recommend if you're in the area.
Yeah, we're going to be sprinkling these types of episodes throughout our podcast. So every once in a while, probably about once a month, you'll get kind of just a book talk episode where we're just talking about maybe our favorite books, just a spoiler-free episode. And during those episodes, we're going to try to promote some local businesses.
Yeah. Yep. Shop small, shop local.
Heck yeah.
Well, maybe we should get started in like starting from the beginning with a book club. Like, what do you do to start one, right? Which is finding the right people. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes that's kind of hard because you might have friends that you love chatting with and can talk about anything, but like, do they read books and do they read books frequently?
I agree with that. I think we got really lucky that we both love reading and we're both really close friends. So yeah, it gets kind of hard to like find a group of people that you want to talk about books with and that enjoy reading books as much as you do. So there are some ways to find some people with the same interests as you and have an interest in starting a book club.
Yeah. For like our book club, we've been together for probably like coming up on 2 years now. Our book club meets once a month. And it started with, so me, you, and my sister, like all three of us wanted to like start a book club because we're all avid readers. And then Abby had a friend at work, Kayla, who loved reading. And she was like, oh, she'd be perfect. Like, I'll ask her. Mm-hmm. And then from there, then they invited Ashley on, who also worked with them. So it's kind of like knowing somebody who knows someone that likes to read. Like, it doesn't always have to be like a friend group. Like, you can just find a friend or a sibling or a coworker, somebody that like reads a lot and would be interested in it. And then you just kind of put your heads together and you're like, who would be up for this sort of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
And the best part about like our situation is we're all like good friends now. And so it's a great way to like just meet new people in general, because I don't know if you agree with this statement, but like I feel like at our age, it's like really hard to make new friends.
I was literally just going to say that. It's difficult. I mean, usually you make like the bulk of your friends either in high school, in college, or rarely at your workplace. I found with like making friends in the workplace, they kind of, once you quit that job or you like move on from that position, kind of drift apart. Like you don't really like see each other much outside of work.
Right.
So it's really nice having a book club so you get to like make some new friends.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you can go with a friend of a friend, like Emily said earlier. Take a look at like your coworkers too. Some of them might enjoy reading and are interested in joining a book club. Otherwise, there's also like an app called Meetup where you can like post, and you could post your book club on there and then find people that are interested that are local. Mm-hmm. And then that's how you can meet new people too.
Yeah. I think Bumble, which we both met our husbands on Bumble.
Yeah.
But don't they have like a friend version of it?
Yeah. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, they have a friend version of it.
Yeah.
You can meet friends on there.
Yeah. If you're like new to a city or you've been in the same city for years, like that might be a nice way to meet people. And it's kind of the same situation as dating, right? Where you like definitely want to meet in a public place, right? Like not getting catfished. Mm-hmm. But that might be an option, kind of like you were saying with Meetup. Like,
yeah. Yeah, or even like posting on social media. Like if you want to keep your book club virtual too, some people
Yeah.
might just want to do virtual and not do any meetups in person. That opens up like a wide range of possible people to invite. So like you could post on social media and use some like book club hashtags, invite people to like message you to join, and then you can kind of start chats with them and see if you have anything in common and find out what their interests are and see if you kind of vibe.
Yeah. I think it's only going to get easier, at least nowadays, to find readers because A, social media, but B, do you feel like books are becoming kind of a trend right now? Like
Yes.
people are really into reading like these days, like way more than maybe even a few years ago because like Book Talk,
Yep.
Bookstagram, like all of that is so popular that
Mhm.
it's like you never know. There might be somebody in your life that you're like, they don't read, but like if you asked them, they'd be like, I've been thinking of getting into reading and maybe this is like a good place to start. Like, I don't know what to read, but like if I'm with a group of people, like they'll have some ideas, you know?
Yeah, and that actually brings up a good point too. Like if you find someone that doesn't really read but they're like interested in reading, book club is a great way for them to start reading because usually in book club you're going through like different genres and then they can find like what genre they like the best.
Yeah.
And then but they can try others too cuz like for me like I didn't think I would ever like historical fiction, but when we read a book on historical fiction, I actually loved it.
Yeah.
And I still think about that book to this day. So, yeah, you get to just discover new books.
Yeah, for sure. Do you feel like there's like a sweet spot in like how many people to have in a book club?
Um, yes, I think there's pros and cons to having a smaller book club and then a larger book club. So, the pros to having a smaller club is everyone pretty much gets a chance to talk.
Hmm.
And it's easier to meet. What if especially if you're doing in person, it's a lot easier to meet to work around a smaller like 4 to 7 schedule. Like
Yeah.
so that's nice. But then in our book club, we have like 6 people in our book club now.
Yeah, we just added Autumn, which now that we've kind of gone like virtual with it because some of the gals in our group have like moved around.
Yeah.
I feel like we're at 6. That's like the perfect number
Mm-hmm.
because it's like you get enough like opinions and thoughts and book suggestions, but it's not super overwhelming. Like when we're on a call, sometimes we like interrupt each other because it's just bound to happen with like lag times of computers and stuff. But like for the most part, I feel like it's kind of the sweet spot. Like to me, I would say like 5 or 6, which is like what we have and is perfect.
Yeah. I found too, like some people, and I'm guilty of this because I definitely have skipped some books. I think at sometimes like the pros to be having like more people would be like you'd have more of a discussion because some people don't read the book.
Yeah.
I've done that. And obviously those people probably wouldn't want to join in the conversation because they do plan on reading it. And that's like the position I've been in.
Hmm.
So I would just skip the meeting. But it's nice to like so then the meeting is smaller. Like you don't have that many people in there. So it's nice to sometimes like have more people, or it would be just to have more of a conversation when some people didn't have time to read the book or
Yeah, that's true. Or like you said, if 1 or 2 people like don't get around to it and they're not going to be there, there's still like enough people where you're still going to get decent conversation and you don't have to like cancel, you
Mhm.
know? That's very true.
yeah. So now you found the bookworms. Now you have to pick the
Mhm.
location. So if you have to decide like if you want this book club to be virtual or
Mhm.
in person.
Yeah.
That all depends on like where people live. We kind of have like a hybrid
Yeah.
book club where some of us will meet and then the people that moved away, they'll zoom in. But definitely for your first location, if you are doing in person, pick a public spot if you haven't met these people before or like
Yeah.
if you don't know them that well. And then once you guys get to know each other, then you can probably like take turns hosting at your home.
Yeah, that's kind of fun, like having people over. But like when our book club is in person, like there was like a few times where we did restaurants if we were all going to be there. Because if you're doing like a hybrid situation, you can't go to a restaurant because the people that are virtual like aren't going to be able to hear. But
Yeah.
like if you're all in person, it is fun. Like going to a restaurant or like a coffee shop. Like oh, let's meet for coffees in the morning or whatever. Like
Mm-hmm.
let's check out this new restaurant. Like I think that's a great way to get out and just like try new things too, like kind of
Yeah.
pair it with something else.
Yeah. It's a vibe, definitely.
Yeah.
I like being in like a restaurant or a coffee shop.
Yeah. Do you feel like as you get
Meetings.
older that like you like coffee shops like more and more.
Oh yeah,
I'm
for
like,
sure.
I want to like
I
make it a regular thing to like go to a coffee shop.
Yes, I love Starbucks. I love Caribou Coffee. That's pretty much like a northern coffee shop, but
Mhm.
like I adore like small family-owned coffee shops. Like I love going to like little tiny coffee shops and like trying new coffees. I
Yeah.
used to work in one in Cloquet. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love doing that.
Hmm. Yeah, you got a lot of different options, places to meet.
You could meet new book club members too at the coffee shop. Like if
That's
you're
true.
having your book club there, someone might come up to you and be like, "Hey, like I read that book too. Can I join in?" Or
Yeah,
have interest in like joining.
that's very true.
Yeah.
I also like did a workbook club for a while too, where we wanted to read like specifically personal development books. And so and in that scenario, obviously we were like meeting in the office, like booked a conference room kind of thing. But we'd always like talked about like, oh, maybe we should like do this one at a coffee shop or like have pizza with it or whatever. Like you don't just have to think about like friends or people like, outside of work, like in work. That's a great way to read books too, is like, oh, we're going to read personal development or we're going to read leadership books or like how to have like more of a diverse or like inclusive environment.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's just really like endless ways to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like meeting in person more than virtual too.
Yeah, it's just something to do
Yeah.
because like especially it's usually during the week because everybody's way too busy on weekends to like find one that works for everybody. And so it's just like a way to get out.
Yeah. I feel like you make more connections too in person than on
Mhm.
virtual. Not saying you can't make connections
Yeah.
virtually, but just like we all learned that with COVID. A lot of
Yeah.
things went virtual and it's different. It's not the same.
Right.
So
Yeah, I totally agree. So then kind of the next thing that you have to think about is like scheduling them. Like how frequently are you going to meet? Like and that really depends on how much everybody in your group reads.
yeah, I have to say too, this is probably the hardest part about having a book club is
Yeah.
scheduling, working around everyone's schedule.
Yep, that's kind of going back to like, the group sizes. Like if you think about it, like that's how many schedules you have to work around.
Yeah.
So for like our book club, we meet once a month. We're all avid readers, so it really hasn't been like an issue. But if you have people in your book club that only want to read, that only can read one book a month, that might be even pushing it for them because, like, well, A, will they get it done? B, do they want to read other books, right? Because, like, they might be trying to finish something else on the side. And then, like, you have to do something that is going to be achievable for everybody.
Definitely. I think too, like this would have worked best for me is like during the holidays when it's really busy, like October through December, to do like maybe a book every other month or month and a half. Or like have like a month and a half to 2 month time frame for
Yeah.
each book.
Yeah. You have to think about, like, the
It's a-
length of the book, too,
Yeah.
right? Like, if you pick an 800-page book, like,
Mhm.
for your book club, I don't think most people are going to be able to read that in a month.
Or want to.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like long books like that.
Yeah. We always check, like, the page count. Or if there is, like, a really big book everybody wants to read, just be like, okay, next time we're going to meet in 2 months or whatever.
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing with scheduling is keep track of like how long the books are, everyone's schedule, and then also like just time of year. Because some times of the year are way more busy than others.
Yeah. And it's just important to communicate, too.
Yeah.
Like, having a group chat and you're just, like, continuously texting, like, all right, like, these are all the days that I'm available. Like, when are you guys available? Or it's even sometimes better to maybe figure it out at your book club meeting at the end
Mm-hmm.
to try to get something on the calendar. We don't do this, but like another thing I thought was like if you had a pretty big group and you just like we're finding that it's like almost impossible to like find a day that works for everybody, maybe just decide like we're going to meet the first Wednesday of every month. And if you can be there, great. And if not, like, sorry.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like it might not never happen.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the best option for a bigger group. And another thing you could do with like a smaller group too, which I think that we should do for our book club, is put together a Google Calendar and everyone puts in the days that they're free that month. And then you can just see like where everyone lines up.
Oh, yeah. Do
On
like
one
one of
day.
those like little survey things. Yeah.
Or no, just like even like have a Google Calendar that everyone has access to in the club. And then everyone puts in their days off for the month. And then whoever like, there's got to be one day that lines up, you know? And then we just pick that day.
Yeah, that's
So.
true. It's important to be flexible. I mean, things happen, but at the end of the day, like the whole point of having one was for it to happen
Mm-hmm.
at a regular frequency. So we've even done it too before where like there was like a couple times where you were really busy with like your soap business around the holidays and like you didn't finish the book, but you're like, I still want to come for Mexican food. Like,
Yeah.
so then you like came and we caught up for like an hour or whatever and we all ate. And then you're like,
I did.
all right, peace.
Yep.
Like you can talk about the book now, you know?
Yeah,
Because like when
leaving.
you get together, you're not going to talk about the book the whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I feel like the first hour of our meeting is always just like catching up.
Yeah.
And then we start talking about the book.
I'm like kind of that like annoying girl that's like, all right, like, should we talk about the book now?
That's
Like,
so funny because you are. So like another big issue that some people can run into is like selecting the books,
Mhm.
especially like if your group is really large. So
Yeah.
there's a few different ways that you can kind of split up this responsibility or take the responsibility of picking the book. One way is like each person takes a turn picking the book. It's kind of like in a way like what we started doing that, and then it kind
Yeah.
of just like we kind of just all recommend books and then we vote.
Yeah.
But a good way if you have like a smaller group is like this month you're assigned picking a book, and then the next month the next person's assigned picking a book.
Right. Yeah. And then maybe that person hosts or whatever.
Mhm.
So, and there's two girls that I work with that I'm really good friends with, and we go to happy hour like kind of frequently, and we are both or all three of us are good readers, and so we were like, how about from now on like we all like pick a book that we're going to read this month, and then when we do like our normal happy hour like we'll talk about it. And so then like the next thought was, okay, whoever picked the book like picks the happy hour spot, and then you just take turns. And there's only three of us. I don't know if I'd call it a book club. I suppose you could call it that, but it's really just like three friends that love to read
Yeah.
and want to talk about books. But like that's kind of an easy way to be really structured about it, and then
Mhm.
everybody's happy because you kind of get to like eventually get to read a book that's maybe been sitting on your shelf for a while.
Yeah. I wish we would go back to that because I know we started our book club off with that. I would like to go back to that just
Yeah.
because I'll recommend books that don't get like no one wants to read.
Yeah, I know.
So
Yeah, it's definitely balanced. Like I always feel like I'm trying to like rack my brain like, okay, who hasn't like picked one in a while, and
Mhm.
like maybe we should do that one. And I think at the end of the day it's been pretty balanced, just kind of trying to keep it fair. But
another way you can do it too is vote on a genre and then pick from that genre. Like every month you do a different genre.
that's true. Yeah, I kind of keep it like mixing it up.
Yeah, so you can try new things.
Yeah, for sure. Our group loves to do thrillers, which we all love thrillers, but it's always nice to kind of like dabble in other areas too.
We've read a lot of romance too.
Yeah. And like something fun that we did too was like around October, like we'll pick like a horror book. And that's kind of like
Yes.
fun because then you can get a little themed with it.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do like a Christmas book in December, but I know
wish we
that,
would have.
yeah, that would have been like really fun. Like there's books that take place in winter. Like I'm like blanking on the name of one, but it's like
There's one
maybe
called, like,
One Day in December or something it's called. It's like a chick lit.
there's also one called like the Christmas like bookshop or bookstore or something like that.
Oh, yeah. It sounds like a Hallmark movie, but like in a book.
Oh, I would love it.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's
Yeah.
totally fine. But it's fun, like, picking themed books.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so now you have to kind of figure out like how to structure the conversation and kind of how to get everyone to talk. Because I
Mhm.
noticed like I'm usually typically like kind of quiet sometimes during our meetings. So there's a few ways to like kind of initiate the discussion and keep everyone involved.
Yeah.
One is having a moderator, like a discussion leader. I think we all kind of just like quietly voted M. As
I know.
that. Like we all just looked to you like, okay, you got the questions.
Yeah. Because, again, I'm the annoying girl that's like, let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
But, yeah, there can, just be kind of the person that typically finds the questions, or, like, if you're switching off houses or locations or whatever, like, that person picked the book, like, they can lead the discussion sort
That's
of thing.
how it started too. And then it kind of just turned into you doing it.
Yeah, which is fine. Like I don't care at all.
Mhm.
One thing I want to point out is like we've ran into issues finding questions on newer books.
Yeah.
Like if it's like just been released that month, you might get lucky on the author's website, but most of the time I don't think we've been able to find questions on new books.
Yeah, you have to make them up yourself.
I know. I'm like, what'd you think of this? What'd you think of this? Like,
Scary.
yeah, so it's more work for you in that scenario. So if you're like coming to book club with like book recommendations, like it's always a good idea to check like, are there questions? And if not, am I up to the challenge of like coming up with some?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. And you can always like, you don't even need questions either. Like you can just talk about the book. Like that kind of happens with us sometimes too, where like we'll just kind of start off saying like, did you like it? Yes or no. And then usually people will say like, oh, this bothered me or whatever, or like, holy cow, like that twist at the end was wild. Like then we'll kind of like branch off of each other and say, oh yeah, I agree. Or what did you think about this? Like, I think it'll flow too, like even if you don't have questions, but to keep it longer and more structured, it's probably like a good idea to have general conversation starters.
Yeah, I think some questions, at least a couple, would be good to have just to like kind of get everyone out of their shell and contributing to the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. Especially if like it's a new group too. Like I remember our first book club that we had, like we were all kind of like getting to know each other. And so we went through like so many questions, but it was fun. Then that's where we were like, "Ooh, we're onto something. Like this is really fun." And yeah, we like really dove deep and like we found a bunch of questions on the internet. It worked out really well.
Yeah, I liked the questions because I think the whole point of like having a book club is to kind of get new perspectives on the book that you read. Because like maybe someone else saw something that you didn't see, and I think the questions help kind of bring that out of people and make you think of the book in a different way. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, see certain things differently or point things out that you maybe didn't pick up on.
So we have some book recommendations too for you that we've either read in book club or we've read outside of book club that we think would be good conversation starters. And
because that's always kind of a tricky part too, is like, what do we read? And like at the end of the day, I think most of the time people will just pick books that they want to read, which is fine. Like there's always something to talk about. I think it helps to maybe like look up some recommendations too, or like that's why we came up with this list, because we were like, there was so much here to unpack.
Yeah.
So yeah, the first one that was actually our first book club book was The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. It's a historical fiction, and so it takes place, I think, like in the 70s maybe, but there was a lot of like trigger warning stuff, like domestic violence in this book. And there was a lot with like the characters and like their dynamics that we just spent like so much time talking about. And like, well, if you've listened to like our It Ends With Us episode, like going back and forth on like the why didn't she leave, and like kind of that whole conversation around the domestic violence piece was really like heavy, but there was just so much. There was a lot there. Yeah. And she's a great writer too. Like I've read several of her books and love it. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really good. Another book that Emily kind of just mentioned is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. That's a fiction, and kind of like what Emily just said, it talks about domestic violence. There's a lot of controversy in that book, I think, and it's just like a lot of people have different sides that they take in that story. So I think that's a really good thing to talk about, and everyone's going to have different viewpoints, I think, which if I remember right, we did when we talked about it in book club.
No, we were like, are you Team Atlas or Team Ryle, ignoring like all of the bad stuff that happened in the book? Like
it was split.
Yeah, we were very like taking sides, almost like Team Edward, Team Jacob, like in Twilight. Like that's how it felt.
Yeah. I mean, this is a really popular book. A lot of people have read it already too. But yeah, I think it's a really good one to start out with.
Yeah, another one we read was The Paper Palace by Miranda Cowley Heller. And this is a fiction book. What I really liked about this book, and there was just a lot to talk about, was like the main character is very morally gray. Like I don't think this is a spoiler, but like the main character starts off by like cheating on her husband, like within like the first few pages of the book. And then it kind of takes you through like her past with this person that she like committed the infidelity with. And you kind of see like their history and stuff. And so there's just a lot of conversation around like some of the decisions she makes, which I think is just a lot of fun to talk about, you know?
Yeah.
Like when there's problems. I'm pretty sure there's like a trigger warning on that book too. So just a heads up.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of our
I know. We
recommendations
picked
have
some like
trigger
really heavy
warnings.
books. Yeah.
Yeah. Another recommendation is Every Last Secret by A.R. Torrey. It's a mystery thriller. I think this is a great one to talk about along with like pretty much any other thriller. They're always great to talk about with all the twists.
Yeah.
But I liked this one a lot because we had good conversations about it. It's about this couple and they have these like new neighbors, and then it kind of just goes into like people aren't really what they seem, and there's a big twist at the end too.
A little bit of attempted man stealing going on. It's so juicy.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's just like the entire time you're like, oh hell no. Like, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And A.R. Torrey, we've read a couple of her books, and like I feel like she's so underrated. Like she's
Yeah.
not super popular, and I don't get why.
I really like I want to read more of her books.
Yeah.
And that's a pen name too. She has like, so I looked it up. She's like, I think it's Alessandra Torrey.
Okay.
I think that's her. It's Alexandra or Alessandra.
Mhm.
It's one of those. But so she was saying that A.R. Torrey is like her dark thriller pen
Oh,
name. And then like
okay.
her Alessandra, I feel bad. I don't know her first name.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like, I think if I remember right, it's like her romance. And it's like not like the dark twisty. So,
Yeah. Oh,
yeah, I want to
that's kinda
read
cool.
books from those.
Yeah. We
her-
should
those
maybe
other
do one
books.
like
Yeah.
on our podcast.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I liked that one a lot too. One book we didn't do for book club, we're actually talking about this book next week, but The Push by Ashley Audrain. And so it's like a psychological thriller, and it dabbles in the conversation of nature versus nurture. I think there's just a lot of things to be discussed in this book, like is she a bad mom, etc. Like I don't want to get into it too much because we're gonna like fully dive in next week.
Yeah.
We both have a lot of thoughts on this book, but I'm really excited to talk about it with you because there's just so much there, and I could see how it would be a great book club book.
Mm-hmm. So another one that we just talked about on the podcast is Local Woman Missing by Mary Kubica, which is another thriller. This book is great for book club. Just all thrillers are, and it has so many twists, and everyone has different opinions on the twists, and it's good to talk about it throughout the book to like see who you thought was actually like the killer in the book. And
Yeah, and if you listen to like our conversation on it 2 weeks ago, like there was so many different people that it could be that
Mhm.
there was like it would just be really fun with a big group. Like, who did you think it was? Like, what did you think about this? Like, it's a good one for sure.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Another one is All the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn Greenwood. So this is a book where the characters make some like kind of, I don't want to say kind of, no, they do make poor decisions. It's kind of like an underage romance. And it's just like another one of those like books where there's a lot to talk about with the decisions that the characters make. Like, do you see why they did these things? Like, obviously they're wrong, but like, do you understand it from a certain standpoint? Like, I think you'd get a lot of opinions, which is always like fun. As long as everybody's like, you know, not going to be judgy, which we haven't encountered anything like that. And like, I think you would know your group like enough if you were going to pick like a morally gray story. But
Mhm.
that one there's a lot to analyze and have an opinion on.
Yeah. Another one, which is our first fantasy, actually our only fantasy recommendation, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, the
Mhm.
ACOTAR series by Sarah J. Maas. If you want to do a series, I highly recommend this one. If you haven't like read any fantasy books, this is a great start into that world. When I was younger, I read a lot of fantasy books, but this was like the first fantasy series that I read like as an adult. And I really think this would be a great book club book just because the world building is amazing. Like there's so much to talk about with that. The characters are very deep and the relationships are questionable, and I just think everyone would have great opinions on it and would have something to say about it.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, where it's like a great book to read if you don't normally read fantasy, because it's such a popular series that I think it's flipped a lot of people. Like,
Yeah.
there were so many people out there that were like, I don't like fantasy. Like, I'm not going to read that. And then they cave because they keep hearing about it. And then they're like, oh, that was actually pretty good. Like, I remember I recommended it to my sister, and she's not as into fantasy as I am, but I just had like a gut feeling that she was going to like it. And she read it when we went to Italy last spring. And then literally when we landed back in Minneapolis and her and my mom like dropped me off at my house, she like came running into my house. She's like, I need the next 2 like Ektar books.
Yeah.
So I think you could convince people.
I have literally not, even on like TikTok, nothing. Like I haven't seen one person who has disliked that series.
Yeah.
Everyone has loved it.
Or if they did, they're like hiding because they're like, I don't want the masses to come after me.
Yeah, maybe. Could be.
Yeah. Great book though.
Mm-hmm.
The last one I threw onto our list that you haven't read yet, but it's called My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. I read this a couple years ago. It's about like a high schooler that develops a relationship with a teacher, which is obviously very wrong for many, many reasons. But there's just like a lot to talk about how it affects her in her adult life, because the book kind of like jumps back and forth between like what actually happened in her younger years to like where she's at now. And you really see like the repercussions of like the trauma of that kind of situation of like being groomed and like all this stuff. Again, trigger warning, but it's a really good book. It's going to make you uncomfortable, but lots to talk about. So
Yeah, I've actually heard that one. I heard it's really good.
I have it on Kindle
Yeah.
if you want to borrow it. I'm going to borrow my Kindle. So you don't have a Kindle, right?
No, I don't.
Okay, well, you can borrow my Kindle. It's good. I don't think it's a very big book. Like
Okay.
maybe 200 or 300 pages. So
Yeah.
it's the perfect length for book club. But yeah, 9 solid books to get you started.
Yeah. Yeah. So we gave you some tips that we've kind of encountered throughout our book club experience, and we hope you're able to get your own started if you're interested.
Yeah. They're fun. Highly recommend.
Again, as like an adult, it's kind of hard to make friends. So
It's
it's another way just to
great
make
way
some
to do
friends.
so. Yeah. And just the most important thing is just have fun with it. And it's just something to do.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode, and go subscribe to our YouTube channel if you can. That'd be great. We'd love that. Come chat with us on YouTube, and go follow our Instagram at The Literary Lounge MN. Yeah. So we will see you next time.
And we're reading The Push by Ashley Audrain next
Oh,
week.
yeah.
We mentioned that already, but
Mhm.
just a reminder, great book, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Bye.
See ya.